It's only game. Why you have to be mad? Hello. Well, welcome back to House of Bards. It's been a long time since we've done one of these, I think.
It's been 300 years. Feels like it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're.
I can't even remember what the last podcast was about. I don't even know if I remember what this entire podcast is about.
Well, I remember the last one I edited together was a clip show.
Yeah.
Before that, goodness knows.
Oh God.
Yeah, but we're back now.
Yeah, we're back.
Whenever now is, because obviously we can record this now, but I am super busy at the moment, so when exactly this will get edited, I'm really not certain. So, I believe that we have actually said this on the podcast. I'm pretty sure, like, at one point when we were talking about ideas for, episodes that we could do, we mentioned this episode in a very conceptual sense, and we said, no, we want to wait until after The Force Awakens comes out on DVD to talk about this one. And I believe that the reason for doing that at the time was because we're going to talk about The Force Awakens and we want you to have seen it first. So if you intend to watch the new Star Wars movie but you haven't had a chance to yet, then don't listen to this episode yet.
Yeah, because it will contain spoilers of The Force Awakens.
Go and buy the DVD, or I think it's like available on demand from like Amazon and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's on the Sky Store as well.
I don't really know how that technology works. I haven't really had a chance to play around with it yet. As with many technologies that I am conceptually interested in but cannot really invest money in. But I'm pretty sure that you can do that. So that might be a good thing to check out. In any case, so what's our topic, Beth? Because this was originally your idea.
Today's topic, this month's, this week's, this podcast's topic is essentially it is about Mary Sues. What makes a Mary Sue? What is a Mary Sue? How does one go about not creating a Mary Sue? And
do Mary Sues honestly even exist?
That is a good question. That is a good question. But first we kind of need to, I think, what inspired this was The Force Awakens. Now, I am not one of these people that thinks Rey is a Mary Sue.
Neither am I.
I always think calling her that is completely ridiculous. She's a capable, flawed protagonist with both good points and bad, and everything she succeeds at, she has a viable reason of backing up at everything she succeeds in.
Yes, she has a lot of traits that are subtly implied throughout the film. There is a complaint that in both her case and Finn's, a lot of that surrounding material isn't really in the text, as it were. And it comes out in supplementary materials a lot, which we, as like patrons of gaming franchises that do that quite frequently, I think complain about less.
I complain about it less. Criticism. But honestly, I do think Star Wars fans have a great capacity at dealing with supplementary expanded universe material any of the fans.
Although I suppose that technically, you could imagine that some of the new fan base brought in by The Force Awakens were operating on an expectation that the existence of the new films was supposed to mitigate some of that. Because they did just wipe the slate clean of the entire legacy canon.
To an extent, yeah. I think they've kept bits and...
I'm given to understand that up until a point where a new core film contradicts something that the expanded universe says, that part of the Legends canon remains part of the main canon. So most of the pre-prequel stuff, I think, is safe at the moment.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, all of the animated series, I think maybe apart from the droids one... But does anyone honestly remember that?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
That's the thing. Yeah, good. Don't watch it. But it was about C-3PO and R2-D2 flying around space with a really butch lesbian and a really, really whiny, like, kid male protagonist.
Okay.
and the super butch lesbian was inexplicably in love with the whiny kid male protagonist. Why do I even know about this? It's only because I love R2-D2 and C-3PO so much. But anyway. I think the cartoons are safe. I think some of the comics are safe. At least the new ones that Marvel are working on are safe.
Yeah.
And I know that all of the video games supposedly are safe.
Well,
so-
not all of them, because
Well, not all of them.
let me think. All the Kyle Katarn games are gone.
Right,
So, Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight 2, however that works out. Jedi Academy as well is gone.
Oh, is Jedi Academy gone?
Yeah, Jedi Academy is after Jedi Knight 2, so it's gone. So ostensibly Kyle Katarn and Jan Ors as characters could still exist, but they would be doing entirely different things in an entirely different timeline, and those games are now non-canon.
Yeah, okay. But as far as I'm aware, things like Knights of the Old Republic...
Yeah, that's fine.
The shit people care about is still in canon. All the
the shit people care about. Lots of people liked Kyle Katarn. I liked Kyle Katarn.
I'm making fun.
I know, I was happy that he and Jan were like happy. It was nice, even in its weird post-Quake glory.
Maybe they are still happy somewhere. They
I don't know. I didn't finish Jedi Academy, so I don't actually know how things end up for Kyle, because he's not the protagonist of that game, but he features heavily in it.
Right.
Also, like, shout out to Jedi Academy for having like the most obvious antagonist like peer in it. Like, when you start out, there's like this one kid who's just like really aggressive and like is just a little shit and always like complains that everything is unfair and that he should be progressing faster than everyone else. And I'm like, do they not screen for this shit? Is it not obvious that he's no?
Is there a scene where he destroys your dream journal and you accuse him of it, and then he's like, no, I did not expel him immediately.
Beth, I have warned you before about memeing in this podcast.
So anyway, the Force Awakens is
the Force Awakens. So, certainly, for my part, what I find most amusing about the very impassioned complaint that Rey is an overpowered Mary Sue of a character is how much of that complaint is reliant on the idea that Kylo Ren, the antagonist of the film, is at all good at anything. So they seem to have it in their head that Kylo Ren is an accomplished, if impulsive, Sith warrior of the kind that one might see, maybe not in Vader, but we're saying like Maul territory here.
Yeah.
And it's like...
He's decent.
It's like, no, he's not. He's really shit at everything. Like, I was going to say he's Snoke's special favourite, but to be honest, I don't even think he is. I think it's mainly just that, like, Snoke likes how angry he is, and he's the most accomplished of the Knights of Ren, who, if Kylo is the best of them, are probably really shit at everything. The Force Awakens presents us with a Republic that is really not concerned about the First Order and is not really prepared to fight them. So it's not like the grade of quality of their Dark Jedi, I suppose, because the Knights of Ren and Snoke aren't Sith. Is like there's not a particularly high bar for that. You basically have to wave a lightsaber around and intimidate people and just do it low profile enough that the Republic will ignore you until you take your giant not Death Star and blow up their not Alderaan.
Yeah, which, to be fair, right, the Starkiller base, that's not even Snoke or, like, Kylo Ren's idea, it was Hux's idea.
To be honest, Hux is the most accomplished of, like, the villain triad there. He actually gets shit done.
Hux is the most competent villain. He is the most underrated character in my opinion in the Force Awakens. He does have a strong following, to be fair, but it did take a while for it to build up. I was like, no, this guy's the one in charge.
Yeah,
what's everyone going on?
Captain Phasma, I think, as a villain, sort of represents what all of us would be as like a villain. Like, as soon as she's like shown this active threat from like Finn and Han and Chewie and Rey, she's just like, all right,
yeah, okay,
all right, I'll do whatever you want, man. You know.
Yeah.
I'm not happy about it, but whatever. I'm gonna keep myself alive, play my cards right, which is not particularly brave, but probably shrewd.
Yeah.
You know, given that those guys had plot armor most of the time, up until the thing happened. We don't really have to talk euphemistically. We're assuming everyone listening has seen the film.
Yeah, Han Solo died.
Yeah, because
he got
his
stabbed
own kid
by
killed
his
him.
son. Oh, that's rough. That's rough.
But it's like, I know a lot of people don't know that the reason why Kylo Ren's lightsaber has a crossguard is not for like any combat advantage. It's because he's really shit at making lightsabers, and like the crystal is cracked and he has to have exhausts for it. But Kylo Ren is shit at everything. That's his deal. He's angry about that. He's impulsive, he's destructive, he's constantly looking up to a man who, whilst incredibly evil, was far better than he would ever have been.
Yeah.
Like, his whole deal is that there's a very, very low bar for him to be threatening, and he's not actually very accomplished at anything. So it's not particularly unbelievable, the idea that he would get his ass kicked while injured by a woman with a, decent amount of grounding in practical skills in a harsh environment and a natural affinity for the Force, which loads of characters in the canon have.
Yeah, and let's be honest, with Rey is trained in combat.
Absolutely.
Like that, she can fight, and a lot of people are like double-ended lightsaber for Rey, and I'm like, yeah, that would work with her fighting style.
Yeah, because she uses a staff. That's what she does.
Yeah, and when she gets the double-ended lightsaber, everyone's gonna be like, see, she's a Mary Sue, she's got a special weapon, and she's not a villain. It's like, fuck off, okay? Ahsoka Tano had a special weapon. She had the white lightsabers, and no one says she's a Mary Sue. At least I hope not.
I was gonna say, Bastila Shan had a double-ended lightsaber, but let's not pretend that people didn't hate Bastila Shan.
Yeah.
I feel that was unfair, but...
Yeah, that's not pretend that society doesn't inherently hate women and women characters, that's...
I find it very difficult to pretend that.
Yeah,
my god. You see, the stuff when the trailer for Rogue One comes out, and suddenly all these Star Wars bros are complaining that there's another new Star Wars film and it's got a female protagonist. I'm like, the ratio here for those protagonists is 2 to 6. This does not make you look good at all.
I mean,
even in a vacuum.
I suppose you could argue that the prequels didn't have a solid protagonist, but even then, most of the main characters in the prequels are dudes.
I feel narratively the prequels didn't have a solid main protagonist, but it was pretty obvious which character's story they existed to tell.
Oh, yeah.
So it's... I think most people would agree that Anakin is supposed to be, at least up until halfway through Revenge of the Sith, the protagonist.
I actually think it's Obi-Wan's story, but
I mean, it tells Obi-Wan's story as well. But Obi-Wan, as you may have noticed, is also a dude.
Yeah.
So, there's definitely a lot of criticisms that can be made, and I think Beth probably wants to talk about some of them in more detail, but definitely the one that gets to me is how much of the argument that Rey is a Mary Sue is inherently reliant on the idea that Kylo Ren is accomplished at doing anything at all. It's just fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Kylo Ren can't fight, that Kylo Ren can't use the Force, that Kylo Ren is absolute turd at doing what he's doing, but he's not good at doing what he's doing.
No, he's passable at best. He has really a basic academic understanding of how to do most of the things that he tries to do, either with the Force or with a lightsaber. And most of his lightsaber style is just flailing around angrily.
Yeah.
Which is intimidating, but not actually particularly effective.
Yeah. And let's not pretend for any second that he doesn't have severe problems in controlling his emotions.
Oh, no, Kylo Ren is severely mentally ill and is being abused. But...
Yeah. But at the same time, that is not going to make you good at fighting.
No.
Right?
No.
It's,
He has severe anger management problems as well, so that kind of makes him bad at fighting. It's just... the fight in the forest is not... Nobody is fighting well in that fight.
Yeah.
Finn and Rey, there are 2 of them. Both of them are, trained in handling a melee weapon. You notice whenever Finn picks up a lightsaber, he carries it in a way that would give you to understand that he was trained to carry a melee weapon the same way that Traitor was.
Yes.
Which makes
My
sense
favourite
because he's a
character.
fucking stormtrooper. Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly
It's
what.
like he's had fucking combat training. Fucking get
Yeah,
over
and
it.
like obviously he has
weirdly,
combat
no-
training in some things. Like he doesn't know how to fire the turret guns on the TIE fighter, but he's like trained as a ground shock troop, which means he knows how to use a variety of ranged and melee weapons.
That's
And
true.
for Rey, it's the same thing. She knows
Yeah.
how to handle a gun. She knows how to handle a staff because
I mean,
she
actually, I
lived
would
on
point
Jakku.
out that she doesn't actually know how to handle a gun that well at all.
No,
like,
she
I
has
think
like
she
the
could-
basic idea, which I think
Yeah.
makes sense because on Jakku she would have been around guns a lot, but
Yeah.
she probably hasn't had much opportunity to use one herself.
Like, really, the majority of Rey's kind of... The one area where they're like, oh, she's a Mary Sue, I can kind of get behind is when they're like, the ship stuff. And not that she knows a lot about ships, because she's been junking around ships all life, but the fact that she can immediately fly the Millennium Falcon. But at the same time, she's been around ships a lot, she knows how they work, she's been around these ruins a lot, of course she'd be able to navigate them.
I didn't think that this came across well in the in the film because I don't think it's immediately obvious to like the people watching that scene that that's what she's doing, but she like plays flight simulators all the time. That is
she does, doesn't
that
she?
is her relaxation activity. So it would make sense that she would have an academic understanding of how to fly most ships, especially since it's previously established in the canon that the property of being a starship pilot is transitive. Starships are similar enough in their construction and control that being able to fly one means you're reasonably good at flying another.
Like cars.
Yes, like cars.
Or bikes. Have you ever sat on a bike and been like, I don't know what I'm doing here?
Or
No.
aircraft or boats of a certain size.
Yeah.
You know,
I think, you know.
most of that stuff is, it's the same.
Yeah, and the reason why most of that stuff is the same is, you know, so you can learn how
Yeah.
to use different models.
Well, it's partly that, and also because, like, as long as the type of vehicle remains roughly the same, the number of things that its operator might want it to do remains roughly the same, so there's no
Yeah.
particular gain in making the controls different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like... But no, I do think that scene could have been communicated better, because, like, it just sort of... It doesn't really indicate that that's what she's doing.
Yeah. But that's really what we're talking about when we talk about abilities. And I would like to point out that any character who is a protagonist is going to have abilities.
Absolutely,
Like,
yeah.
especially in chosen one narratives. They're going to have something that makes them interesting to talk about, whether it's a profession or a job. You know, like, even if you watch something like a romantic comedy, most of the characters in that have interesting jobs. And if they don't have interesting jobs, it is impressed upon you that the ordinariness of them and the boringness of their job is, like, the extraordinary thing, in fact.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's like, oh, this is a waitress, and she hates it, you know. Or, you know, but normally, you know, either protagonists are unsurprisingly, overwhelmingly writers, nearly almost all of the time. Have you noticed this?
I feel like you're possibly reading too much Stephen King, but whatever.
No, like, well, yeah, but, like, it's quite common, isn't it? Like, a protagonist is a writer.
Well, write what you know, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Write what you know. Everyone, you know.
And I guess also that gives the idea of somebody who has a very normal job, but is, as part of their day-to-day life, particularly observant, which makes them a good narrator.
Yeah.
Depending on exactly what kind of writer they are. Like, sometimes they're journalists, because that's close enough that, like, writers can be like, it's basically the same thing in a different field. I should be able to write that. And it gives them an excuse to get out into the world.
You know what you don't see many protagonists of, which I think is probably going to change in the next few years. You don't see many game devs as protagonists.
Yeah, there are two reasons for that. One of which I think is going to go away, and the other of which I don't. Game devs don't do a lot of the stuff that other creatives do, and I think that's the hidden bit. But there's also the fact that a lot of creatives don't understand how to write game devs, and it's like, well,
that's true. Yeah,
you know, it's
But you would think there would be a few indie games, wouldn't you? Because indies do like
indies do sometimes like get out into the world to try and get inspiration and stuff.
But
I feel like you could probably have a series where programmers, as long as you found some way to sort of quantify the idea of whatever the magic in your world is as programming, which is what I do in my world, but also like not what I'm talking about here. It's a bit confusing, but like you could sort of give that an active role, and then it sort of becomes more practical to have a game dev protagonist or any kind of developer protagonist.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely getting more hacker protagonists, which makes sense in this day and age.
It's like the problem is the normal software production cycle is not a particularly interesting thing to base a narrative around.
No.
Unless the narrative that you're basing around it is not really an adventure-based narrative, it's more to do with the people who are involved in...
I would love to see a Parks and Recreation, like, type, or office type show about, like, a game production company.
I believe some exist and they're shit.
Oh, that's a shame.
But maybe there will be a good one at some point.
Eventually, wouldn't there?
I would think so.
Gaming is becoming such a popular cultural thing that eventually...
It's like... There's still a lot of people in film and TV who don't really understand how game development works, or even software development in general, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think we'll probably see some of that stuff at some point.
Yeah. Well, I think the crossover's going to get bigger and bigger. I think especially when you have, like, you're going to have writers who will have worked in multiple different industries as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Eventually going to
and I
pitch
think also, once journalists get more turned on to the more... I don't want to say glamorous, but perhaps more actively exciting and action-based side of game dev. So I'm thinking primarily of like game jams and stuff like that. I think it would be easier to write about those things.
Yeah.
I feel like Train Jam would probably make quite a good documentary.
Yeah.
Just like have somebody, have a camera crew on the train as well to just sort of like interview them. But then again, after... Polaris's disastrous game jam.
Shit, yeah.
I feel like maybe they want to sort of like go hands off with the whole media coverage of that sort of thing just for a bit, because wow, that was a shit show.
Yeah.
That was amazingly terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
What were we talking about?
It's protagonists in general and heroes in general, they have to have something unique or different or special about them. Not all the time.
No.
But that in itself is unusual.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it's enough that character is given the narrator role, that they are in a particular position to observe something happening.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are a variety of characters who all have those particular strengths, and in that case, I know we gave a spoiler warning for Star Wars at the beginning, but I actually really want to talk about Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn trilogy for a moment.
Okay.
And this is actually like a spoiler for the end of the third book, so skip over this bit, I guess, if you are in the middle of reading those. I'm given to understand that if you haven't started reading them yet, there's a good chance that you won't really be able to get into them. I love them, but whatever. How for a long... all throughout the first book, it's kind of indicated that the Chosen One is Kelsier, and then Kelsier dies, and then it's like, oh, Kelsier was always supposed to die, that was his plan. So then, I forget what the girl's name is, but like all through the second and third books, it's more and more like she's the Chosen One, that she's the one who's gonna like put everything right, because she's doing all of the plot important stuff. And then, right at the end, like, she does do a really plot important crescendo thing where she and her boyfriend die, but the really important crescendo thing that she did wasn't like the fulfillment of the prophecy or anything. And then like this side character, I say side character, he's, I suppose at that point, after all the people who've died, he's sort of like the Ron Weasley, I guess. It turns out that it's actually like supposed to be him all along. And he turns into God and fixes everything.
Nice. Good work.
And then you have like this one character who was followed as part of one of the story threads in the third book, but was otherwise like a really, really seaside character. Just being the only surviving person, and therefore the most important person in the narrative, because everyone else has either died or turned into God. And it's just, okay, so that this is the dude who gets to survive through the end. Nice. So you can do that sort of thing if you have a lot of characters who have like skills that are not really like super special Mary Sue skills, but are just good at doing what they do.
Yeah. Which actually, to be fair, is how most people do right. Like, even Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
They could like Rey doesn't need to be on Starkiller Base. The reason why she's on Starkiller Base is because she got kidnapped. Finn needs to be on Starkiller Base. Han Solo needs to be on Starkiller Base. Chewie needs to be on Starkiller Base. No one else really needs to be on. Like, that's it. That's the team they send, and they have like Poe and his pilots doing the pilot thing. You know, she is there incidentally. She's not. You know, like they want to rescue her because they know that's where she is, but she's not actually supposed to be there. She's not integral to the completion of that plot. They could have done the Starkiller bit without her.
And it's like a lot of the time in the original trilogy and in The Force Awakens, it's the sheer lack of available Jedi that makes the ones that they have so powerful. It's like if your pool of Force users is very, very small, then their skill comparative to each other is generally not that relevant.
Yeah.
It's like Luke's training was not good. It was better than Rey's, at least in the Jedi stuff, but it was not really like incredibly, in depth compared to the stuff they did in the Old Republic.
Yeah.
And then you see like Anakin surrounded by groups of Jedi who are vastly better than him at pretty much everything. But it's just he's competent. It's fine. But you look at his like development and at the development of those around him a lot more than you look at him being the best at everything, because he really isn't.
I mean, Anakin is a very good Jedi in Clone Wars. He's very powerful, but it's nothing another Jedi can't do.
I think it's less that Anakin... Because the thing is, there's a difference between Anakin being very powerful and him actually being good at what he does.
Yeah.
Like, he has a lot of potential, and he has a lot of power, but he's not...
If you've ever watched Sci-Fi Debris, you'll know that in Clone Wars, I very much think Anakin's tactics are very similar to the person who does that, where it's... He basically just throws clones at the problem until it goes away. He's not an actual general. Like, he gets a lot of people killed just because he can. as long as it's a clone, it's fine. They're disposable. You know, Anakin is there in Clone Wars to do morally questionable things, and the Imperial March to play in the background.
So, how does any of this relate to role-playing games?
I think everyone's going to make a Mary Sue in their lifetime, probably, if they even exist.
Absolutely. Either in a role-playing game or in writing. Like, if they exist, you will make one. And it's not necessarily bad that you made one.
Yeah, it's part of just growing and learning as a writer that, of how to create a compelling character, because most Mary Sues aren't really... Like, Mary Sue, I kind of feel is a shit term for a Mary Sue. The actual proper term is boring invincible hero, which for some reason is considered a separate trope, even though it is the same thing. It's just boring invincible heroes are often considered to be men.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's getting real fucking irritating, the number of times somebody thinks that they're the bee's knees for figuring out that there can be male Mary Sues.
Yeah.
Like, every single... And it's usually Batman, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Usually when people figure this out, it's because they look at Batman and go, hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Oh. And they're like, no, you are not actually the first person to figure this out. In fact, there were people before this concept existed who knew about this.
Yeah. The boring invincible hero's a trope that's been around way longer. It normally actually gets applied to Superman, even though I don't think it's true for Superman. But again, with comic characters, it's always going to be depending on the writer. Flaws and traits are transient and negligible at best. It's because it's comics, and you're always going to have a different writer. But yeah, boring invincible heroes, they've always kind of been a thing. They're probably like...
This is something I've been reasonably confused about recently. So if anybody listening watches pro wrestling, could you explain, does John Cena fit into this particular trope that we're talking about? Because most of my exposure to John Cena is memes, and I am now coming to understand that might not be 100% accurate as to what the general viewing public's opinion of him is. But it's that general sort of thing is that if a hero is, well, boring and invincible, or boring because they are invincible.
Well, yeah, that a boring invincible hero isn't boring because they're boring. You know, whatever that means. Their invincibility, the essence of they don't struggle for anything, they don't ever seem to come up against any opposition.
None of their achievements really have any weight because there was no risk to them achieving them.
Yeah, and I mean, boring invincible heroes can come in strength, they can come in terms of ability, you know, whether that's intelligence-based or superpower-based.
It should be clear, boring invincible heroes do not exist in real life, and if they did, we would, I think, have a much different opinion toward them than we do to the ones we see in fiction, because having somebody who could effortlessly succeed in anything within their wheelhouse that they attempt to do reliably, as long as you're on the same side as that person, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
that's somebody like, imagine in sports you have like somebody who for whom it is absolutely effortless to perform perfectly. Like,
you're thinking of Michael Jordan.
Am I thinking of Michael Jordan?
Yeah, you're thinking of Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not thinking of Michael Jordan because I already prefaced this ramble by saying that actual boring invincible heroes don't exist. But
Beyonce.
Sure, whatever.
No, she's not boring.
I feel like I mean, I'm not saying that she doesn't fit into the slot, at least a little bit, but I feel like Beyonce is just very, very resistant in terms of the power of her fan base to like opposition she does receive.
Yeah.
I feel like a boring invincible hero would destroy their opposition so completely that it would never rear its ugly head. And Piers Morgan is still alive, so...
I knew you were going to mention Piers Morgan, fucking hell. I read a rebuttal in that today by Jamelia, and she was like... And she destroyed him.
I knew about Jamelia's rebuttal largely because of Piers Morgan's follow-up tweet, and that got retweeted onto my timeline, quoted by somebody who just said, delete your account.
Fucking hell.
You can go and look up Piers Morgan's follow-up tweet if you like. I'm not going to give it traffic. It's not good. It's not worth your time.
Is it racist?
No, but that concept is involved. It's...
No, Piers Morgan's like... What's... like, Piers Morgan's the word for that. You know that villain? Who's just an absolute... No, he's not like a villain. He's like, yeah, right, you know in TV shows where it's like, they always do, like, a newsreader or a politician who's just an absolute asshole towards the hero all the time. J. Jonah Jameson. Piers Morgan is J. Jonah Jameson. But, like, not funny.
What about, like, Khaleesa Al-Jalani, but even more politically disaligned?
Yes, exactly. That's Piers Morgan.
Mm.
I want the thing for this. I want this to be Khaleesa Al-Jalani's body, right? And I want Piers Morgan's head on her. That's what I want the background image for this to be.
I'm really upset because I can see that in my mind's eye and it's absolutely horrifying, but now that you've mentioned it, I'm going to have to do it. I'm very upset.
Get me pictures of Beyonce. That's combined.
I'm really confused. I'm upset.
All of this.
So anyway, it is very unlikely that you are going to make a character who functionally acts as a Mary Sue or boring invincible hero in your campaign, because you're going to be playing with other people, and those other people will also have characters that will do things.
Yeah.
So as long as there's like a healthy dialogue between you and those other players, and you're not like dominating the game all the time, there shouldn't be much of a problem. If you are, maybe you have things you need to like resolve. Like stop doing that, but if you're then like told that you're doing that, try and make an effort to change. If you're worrying that you're doing that, talk to your DM and to the other players, because maybe they'll have an idea. And they'll probably appreciate that you're sort of vaguely aware that you might be doing that.
I think as well, the thing is, a lot of Mary Sue stuff is based on ability. We'll get into the personality stuff and the way people react and treat Mary Sue's later on. But because a lot of it is ability based, eventually you are going to, and this isn't like you probably will. This is you definitely at some point will fail a clutch roll.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And fuck everything up for everyone. So don't worry about it on that front, because you'll definitely fail. So it's fine.
Don't worry, you definitely will fail. But yeah, it's. I mean, I think that having a mechanically focused system helps with this, because obviously, if your abilities as a character are laid out in the system, then the chance of you overstepping the boundaries of those abilities is much less.
Yeah, and I think as well, a lot of the times people, D&D especially asks you for a character flaw. It asks you for something that your character does wrong.
And this isn't like a job interview character flaw, where it's like, tell us about a flaw that you think that you have. And you're like, well, I think that sometimes I work too hard. One time,
that's what I said.
One time I worked so hard that the company that I was working for ran out of work for anyone to do ever, and they had to close.
That is what I said, and that got me a job. So
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's what I said as well, and it's a fucking lie. Or at least it was a fucking lie at that time. I think the experience since is
yeah. I absolutely am a hard worker, and I will absolutely, if someone asks me to do something, I will be like, yeah, I'll do that. No questions asked. And sometimes I make commitments that maybe I am not physically or mentally adept at keeping, and I shouldn't have made that promise.
But that's an actual flaw. You can't actually
flaw.
talk about the consequences of that flaw in a job interview, which is like what we're like complaining about. And
yeah,
I mean, obviously, if you're a potential employer listening, I probably wouldn't use that particular thing, because I've already said that I don't think it's honest to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff has changed since the last time I did a job interview, to be honest, because, I did one for my internship, and then lots of things happened in that year, some of them good and some of them not. There was probably quite a lot that wasn't helped by the fact that I was sort of, experiencing severe mental illness and not really seeking any help for that. But things are marginally better now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's an actual flaw that 5th edition wants you to give.
Yeah.
And it is really only a role-playing flaw, but it should be reasonably easy to pick one up if you really think about it. Think about, what would this character do that would do as a part of their normal, everyday functioning that would be annoying or irritating or disadvantageous or dangerous or whatever.
Yeah, I think, God, what's Jay's? Because Jay's went through character development recently.
Oh, well, don't you have your sheet with you?
I do, but it's definitely changed since then. I think before it was, really gobby, won't shut up, always, getting in the face of authority. That's not really it anymore.
Well, hang on, let's see if I can pull up Asriel's.
Well, I can... Asriel has a lot of flaws.
Asriel does, but there is one specific flaw that is the one that is listed on his sheet.
Yeah.
There's a difference between the many character flaws that Asriel has and the character flaw that Asriel is supposed to have.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I really, really love this. Asriel's stated flaw... Oh, no, this is something I knew he had, but I didn't know that it was, his actual flaw on his sheet. Whoops, I think I just knocked the mic there. I hold no value for material wealth aside from its immediate conversion into goods relevant to the continuation of life, and will do this to all such wealth I hold at the first possible opportunity. Which basically means Asriel doesn't like amassing money, and will give it away at the first opportunity to people to whom it can be converted into relevant, food or shelter or sex sometimes.
Yeah.
There was one time where he had one of the most ostentatious orgies offered by a brothel, just to get rid of all the money that he had.
Because I remember you dumping the money on, and they were like, "Holy shit!" I don't even know.
I think he was just so I want the biggest party that you can throw, and just keep getting more debauched until all the money's gone.
And they were like, I mean, like, we can... I mean, like...
I'm pretty sure that it was like they'd just like go up to him and like whisper in his ear and go, well, we can... and if we got 4 or 5 more people, then we could... and then if we got a photographer in, then he could like sit at the edge and then while you... and he's like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. Let's do it.
Yeah, like, they got like photographs taken like he went on fucking Thunder Mountain at Disney World.
I mean...
Which is definitely the name of that brothel now, Thunder Mountain. If it wasn't before, it is now.
I mean, yeah.
Thunder Mountain.
I wonder what happened to those photographs. Like, presumably he still has them.
I think he probably does have some copies, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see why the photographer wouldn't make multiple copies.
Mm. Well,
that was
I mean...
expensive, and that was an experience. Christ.
I do love that, like, even here on the sheet, you go down, like, the little boxes on a 5th edition sheet for, like, copper, silver, electrum, gold, platinum, and they're just all blank except for the gold one, which has a big number 0 in it. Because he just straight gave away all his money to somebody else.
I think he gave it to Coslin, didn't
I'm
you?
pretty sure he did, yeah. It was somebody in the party.
Yeah.
And that is his character flaw because he's a cleric of Denska, the god of death, and he's like very much of the you can't take it with you opinion. So he's like, amassing material wealth is pointless, and I'm going to take this idea to its extremes and just not amass any like long-standing material possessions at all that aren't like directly helping me accomplish what I'm trying to do at the current time. Which you would think would make him self-sacrificing like a monk, but he's honestly really not.
He's honestly so not. Again, another character flaw, not actually self-sacrificing, kind of a tool.
I mean, like, he's not really supposed to be self-sacrificing.
No, he's not, but...
He's bad-tempered and suspicious and sarcastic and a massive contrarian. None of which were really intended, but I sort of like the number of... Because this is the thing, right? Giving your character flaws can be just as fun as giving your character abilities. So long as everybody at the table is cool with you having those flaws. Like, it's not really cool if you're, like, deliberately doing something that other people at the table really aren't comfortable with, but you're like, oh, well, it's what my character would... Shut up. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, you can tone that stuff down. And it's like... I don't know, like sort of try and get the temperature of the group to see what sort of thing is going to fly. If because like you could get away with like all but one of you being sort of like flawed, difficult to deal with people who are very good at one thing, but perhaps aren't the best people to interact socially. If one person sort of has it in their mind that they want to be the straight man and basically just like go, okay, give me a moment, I'm going to sort out this mess that you've all like done by offending this noble dignitary.
That's both of the current roleplay groups. It's like,
well who is it? It's like
it's definitely Valanthe in my group.
And
at the minute.
I would say
it's Zell.
Yeah, it's Zell, and it was to an extent Balasar before. He did have a bit of a point where like Balasar and Marion would sort of like switch in between, like passing the role whenever something relevant to their particular like reason for acting out would come up.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, when this thing comes up, Balasar's going to act like a dick, so Marion's going to step into this role, and then vice versa. Yeah. But now it's just Zell, because... Yeah. Because I think Marion and Jay have both taken, like, massive heel turns.
Yeah. Which is as soon as the Paladin joins, all the chaotic good characters suddenly...
Yeah.
Not so good
I
anymore.
say, like, chaotic good, like Jay is officially... not chaotic good anymore.
No, yeah, that's changed, yeah.
And indeed, Jay's not a very religious person, but I feel like the next time they try to commune with their god, may have a nasty surprise.
Oh dear.
Because there's a rule about alignments and, like, worshipping a god. And maybe Kimoni's not so cool with the idea that that rule is now being broken.
Oh dear.
But possibly some other deity is cool with that idea.
Aha.
Who knows?
Oh.
But I haven't really had the opportunity for that because they're gonna go and fight this big burly elf lady in the like factory level, I guess. It's a boss fight on top of like a whole load of smelters where they're like melting down stolen jewelry into crude gold ingots, which basically just exists so that they could have a factory level boss fight where there's a chance that people might fall into molten metal. You know the drill by now. You've played this video game.
Yeah.
Be real.
You've watched the first Batman movie made by Tim Burton.
I have. I forget what that has to do with what we're talking about.
I think he falls into like a vat of acid or something and it fucks up his face.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But that was just a thing that happened to him, though. That wasn't...
Yeah.
I don't think that Batman was particularly involved in that.
Yeah. So, I think that the next thing we come to when we talk about Mary Sue's is, as we've previously said, like, not facing any opposition is kind of a big deal, and always easily accomplishing goals is sort of, to that. But the other one is having everyone like them. And as Alex previously pointed out, if a person in real life could easily accomplish everything reliably, we would really like them.
Well, people who benefited from them being able to accomplish things would really like them. People who didn't, or who were actively inconvenienced by that, would hate them. So they'd be very polarizing people.
Well, yeah, but if Superman actually existed in real life, we might be suspicious of him because, like, no one man should have all that power.
And also because we've sort of got this idea in our heads that altruists don't exist.
Yeah.
But no, I think most people would be like, okay, I'm cool with the idea of Superman, actual invincible superhuman who can like stop all of the bad things that happen. Like, yeah. I'm cool with that person existing and helping us out, especially since he doesn't appear to really want anything in return other than us being nice to him, which we were going to do anyway, so... Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Apart from Batman, God, Batman, why'd you have to ruin everything? But, but yeah, it's one of these things, whereas, so in a fictional universe, it would make sense if you are very good and reliable and capable at doing the thing you're doing that people will like you. I'm not necessarily saying that as a person your value is in your skills.
No. But I think that, like, as long as somebody isn't... I think it does depend on the kind of skill, because if somebody has, like, a really good skill, and you also have that skill, you might feel threatened by them as competition and overshadowed by them, in which case you're probably not going to like them. But if it's a practical thing that they can do... Yeah. Like, you're probably at least kind of happy that that person is around.
Yeah.
It's...
yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, I would like to try and do this thing, but superhuman Superman can also do the thing if I fuck up and do it correctly. And I know that he will, so that's good. I would say the biggest problem that you have to face here is your character a Mary Sue? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Because whether or not
real.
Mary Sues actually exist, and also whether, well, like, Mary Sues don't exist in real life, but whether or not they actually exist as, like, a literary-based critical construct, if you're, like, playing as part of a group of people in a reasonably well mechanically defined system, your character is probably not a Mary Sue.
Yeah.
If you are still concerned that your character is a Mary Sue, then I would say that your course of action is to try and, like, pay attention, like, not to your character, but to whether you are dominating the game. And whether, because maybe the other people playing the other characters like that you're doing that, just because, like, you can take the lead and they can follow on and be very reactive, which some people do like, but it's worth, like, finding out if they do like that. Because if they don't, maybe you want to make an active attempt to sort of step off and try and take a less active role.
Yeah, I definitely benefit. Like I definitely benefit from someone who's able to I'm able to play off with, and that helps me take more of an active role in roleplay.
I'm really glad, actually, that all of your characters have these sort of like very strong personal plots and motivations that mean that we can sort of constantly like have these one-to-one things between the DM and the player as to where that character wants to be going. And I remember that it was kind of difficult for me to do this with Jordan when he was playing Balasar, which is kind of where the whole bailiffs storyline came from. We were just like, let's make up a thing for Balasar to have a personal side quest about. And I think we've said this before on another podcast, but if you as a DM are worried that a character is not getting enough screen time, as it were, give them a side quest. Ask them what would be a fun problem for you to overcome, and then it's like in Mass Effect or Dragon Age, it's like their personal quest, and then the DM can just have like a bit of a hook for that turn up, and then you can all go and do the thing. It's like, and then hopefully when they come and help you, like, it's best that you know what's going on the most, because then you can take the lead. But it's also, I kind of hope that it's kind of like Shepard in Lair of the Shadow Broker. I really like the dynamic in Lair of the Shadow Broker, because it's like Shepard is along for the ride, but not leading, just being really competent at everything.
Yeah.
Like, Liara is like, Shepard, can we do this thing? And Shepard's like, yeah, sure. Let's go and do it. You take the lead because you know what's going on here, but I'm not being made to look foolish. Like, you're employing my help because I'm good at what I do and we are friends. And we're just going to be awesome together. And I'm like, well, if you can sort of hit that dynamic with what you're doing, that's probably the thing that you should be doing all the time. Whoever has focus, everyone else still gets to be cool. And then nobody is a Mary Sue or a boring invincible hero or whatever, because you feel like you've worked as a team and mitigated each other's weaknesses and boosted each other's strengths and stuff.
I think a lot of the time, when it comes to Mary Sue's, a lot of that kind of anxiety comes around the idea that, like, literally anyone will accuse any character of being a Mary Sue as long as it's a girl character. Like,
I think that's most of the time. I feel like to accuse a male character of being a Mary Sue, there has to be a reasonable amount of evidence that they fit the set of criteria that have been long established as being, like, this is what a Mary Sue is. And even then, it's going to take a long time before someone figures that out.
And the bar is much higher for male characters as well to be considered a Mary Sue.
Because it's like, and I think actually here is where we're getting to the crux of the matter, is that when somebody accuses a character of being a Mary Sue, most of the time what they're saying is, this character is able to do things that I don't personally believe that this character should be able to do. And there's a pretty good reason as to why that's going to come up a lot more with a female character being able to do anything than with somebody looking at Batman and going, the number of things that this man is able to do simultaneously while suffering minimal consequences breaks my suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we really have to dig hard to figure out exactly why there's a lot more scrutiny on female characters, and indeed why the entire trope has a female character name.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on about the treatment of female characters throughout the years as a person, but I feel like it would be its own separate podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
It could be its own separate horse of Brads on its own, me just saying, I remember back in my day, this is how female characters were treated, and this is how it has progressed. Like, it's actually quite nice, sort of, like, when I saw Ray get accused of being a Mary Sue, I was like, it's 2006 again. I had no idea. We'd went back in time. A whole decade, you know. Because I remember when Hermione Granger and Ginny Weasley and, would you dare believe it, Harry Potter's mother, Lily, got accused of being Mary Sue's.
Now, in fairness, there's a decent amount of criticism about how, what's his name, the filmmaker?
Chris Columbus?
Oh, yeah. I was like, he has a really unbelievable name. What's his unbelievable... Oh, yeah, he's literally called Chris Columbus.
Yes.
That's not a real name that a real person, aside from the obvious has.
Yeah.
But
aside from the genocidal murder of Chris Columbus.
But it's like there's a decent amount of criticism about how he sort of
downplayed her flaws.
Yeah, downplayed her flaws and upplayed her strengths.
I mean, he definitely did that, I feel, because... And I remember at the time it was like, Hermione's a really good role model for young girls. And they really wanted to push that angle. And the way that they did that is they just basically made, she's a really good role model for girls, so therefore she cannot have any problems with her whatsoever as a character.
Which is not really very healthy, because...
It's not healthy, no.
It's like, okay, here is this role model for you. She does not make any mistakes ever. Even the things that she does that aren't presented as good by the narrative are morally ambiguous at best, and definitely not incompetent. So don't ever do anything wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, this tends to be why, you know, one, most Mary Sues are girls is because most fanfic writers are girls, and Mary Sues originate from fanfiction.
As sort of like I've seen a decent number of arguments that the Mary Sue is sort of like a what's the word? A developmental artifact. So like it's a component part of a particular stage of the development of writers. That happens to all writers, but you get to see it in the fanfiction sphere because the bar for publishing in that sphere is very, very low. Because it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah, and the reason why it tends to happen to young women a lot more is because young women are constantly, you know, socialised to examine their flaws a lot more closely and be like, do I look right? Am I skinny enough? Am I pretty enough? And
so it makes a lot of sense that a character that somebody makes, that a character that a young girl makes, would have already solved all of those problems
by being perfect, yes.
So that they can get on to actually addressing the particular narrative problem that you wanted to put down. It's not conceptually a bad idea, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like as a young girl, the only solution that you can probably, well, young woman, I suppose, possibly think of as being a solution to how do I stop not being perfect? Be perfect. That's the only solution you can think of. And
it makes logical sense.
Yeah, and when you get into your 20s, hopefully when you get into your early 20s or your 30s, maybe even as late as your 50s, you will learn that the actual solution to not being perfect is to just stop giving a shit.
Yeah.
And be like, I'm human. This, by the way, is also where the whole, like, problematic discourse thing, like, how do I become unproblematic and be the least problematic person in the world?
You don't.
The answer is you actually can't.
You can't.
You're always going to be a piece of shit.
It's not achievable. And it's like, I think a lot of the time what those people are trying to get at, but they don't even realise that it's what they're trying to get at, is take responsibility for the times when you fuck up. Because even though you can't stop this stuff from happening entirely, like, it still has an effect in the world. And a lot more character development would come from being able to do that. That is a character strength that you legitimately can develop. Yeah,
you can legitimately become responsible. And that's a scary word, but you two can... This is getting very, like, you two, you know, but, you know, the Mary Sue exists a lot of the time because a lot of writers have this nervousness about... Okay, well, my female characters have to be completely perfect.
Yeah.
Because, of course, any female character with a flaw will get called useless or whiny or shit or unempowering, and that's a thing that needs to be addressed as well. But it's like, it's, you know, sometimes the option is be a Mary Sue or don't be a Mary Sue.
And I feel like there's sort of also a phase... I don't know if it's like a rejection of that idea or whether it's some chronological stage before or after it, where... Once there's this realization that a totally perfect character is not a feasible thing that can continue to exist.
The anti-Sue phase.
Yeah, where you just have this character who's composed almost entirely of flaws. You know, they're impolite, they make bad decisions. Well, sometimes they make bad decisions. Sometimes they're just like the broody email archetype. But,
you know, they're almost ridiculously plain and unattractive. They're not particularly intelligent. Nobody really likes them, and it's sort of difficult to say, okay, well, why am I reading about this person then if I'm supposed to hate them so much?
Yeah. Although, in my experience, in my experience, and this is anecdotal, I'll admit, but I found a lot more of the characters generated during that stage, regardless of who the author is, at least when I was growing up in the particular, internet zeitgeist of the early 2000s, tended to be male.
Yeah.
Which I suppose makes sense with what we've been saying, is that, like, you would then look to that and be like, well, I can't write about a perfect female character. I've figured out why that doesn't work, but I don't know how to fix the problem. So
Yeah.
I want to write about somebody who isn't that, so let's write about a flawed male character instead.
Yeah. It's like a lot of the time, these don't write a Mary Sue or Mary Sue litmus tests. They'll teach you what a Mary Sue trait is.
Yeah.
But they won't actually tell you, okay, this is actually how you write a balanced, complex character. I remember the best advice I ever got, hey, these traits, having one of these traits doesn't necessarily mean your character's a Mary Sue. It's just think of them as like spices in a dish. You don't want to use too many, or else it'll become too busy. And that's ultimately the only successful writing advice I've ever gotten from a Mary Sue litmus
There's
test.
honestly not a huge amount of, like, procedural advice that can be given to somebody not to make a character like this. In fact, it's even conceivable that that kind of character is a natural component part of the development process of somebody doing writing or somebody doing role-playing or anything like that. And given the possibility that that's the case, sometimes you just gotta roll with it, man. Like, if somebody at your table makes... Right, shall we do if somebody at your table makes a Mary Sue?
Yeah.
First of all, shut up. To be honest, like nothing you say at this point is going to be good, because maybe this character could be conceived of as a Mary Sue or a boring invincible hero or whatever, but maybe they couldn't, and you're probably going to end up being rude regardless of what you say about the subject. So it's fine, don't worry. Either other people at the table will have a problem with this character for long enough that the subject will be brought up, which will be bad for the person who controls the character, but, it might go some way to solving the problem. Or, more likely, as the person gets better at doing the role-playing, and as long as you let that person engage narratively, they'll want to write... Well, I say want to write. They'll want to play, like, more interesting stories, and then once they've explored the character enough, they'll realize what aspects of their character are significantly limiting them in their capacity to, like, tell those stories. And so they'll start adding flaws to the character. I think it's very, very likely that will happen, because there's really a very limited amount that you can do with a character who is too good at everything. Because, they're limiting for the same reason that we've been saying that people don't like them. They never really experience any hardship. Any hardship, no. It's the weirdest thing, but what's popping into my head right now is that there's an episode of Arthur about this.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't remember the names of the characters, but it's something to do with, like, their I think they actually got, is his name Daniel Handler? The Lemony Snicket guy. Yeah, I think so. I think they actually got him in to do it, and there's, like, a whole A-plot where one of the characters, like, starts writing, and then the first story that she writes has not only this Mary Sue, but a plot where nothing happens. Like, there's no inherent conflict, there's no development, there's nothing like that. And then she gets bad feedback, and then like, the second time she writes a good one that is actually entertaining. And it's like, well, that happens. That does actually happen. Like, people will find that not only because of the feedback on their work, but also on what they want to do, like what they actually want to play or what they want to write, they'll be like, this is a really limiting character. And sometimes they won't get why, and they'll just want to pave the character and start again. I'd say let them do that a couple of times. They will, like, if you're a GM, like, let them do that a couple of times. They'll figure it out. I promise you they will. It might take some time, but you gotta let people have that kind of development, man. Sometimes it's hard, but, like, they're not going to get any better if they don't really understand why that's coming off badly. And it's just a game. It's only a game. Why you have to be mad? I have memed too much in the podcast. I must leave now and never come back. It's your podcast now, Beth. You have to edit all of it.
Okay. I will do air horns for every topic transition that we do.
Okay, that sounds like I'm leaving the editing in capable hands. There'll be a slight tonal shift, I think, in the editing, but I'm sure that our audience will be able to adjust to it in time. I don't even know what this is getting in. So yeah, I feel like...
Yeah.
Was there something else that you wanted to say?
So, in summation, anyone who criticised Rey for being a Mary Sue's a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Not only in terms of their severe underestimation of Rey's abilities, but their severe overestimation of the abilities of pretty much every other character in the film.
Apart from Poe Dameron,
Oh yeah,
he really
Poe
is the best pilot in the Resistance.
Yeah, Poe Dameron is brilliant at everything, but he's just one man.
He can't do everything.
Yeah, and he spends a lot of the narrative in conceptual, not dead space.
Yeah, like, like what was he doing?
I don't know.
Was he getting his hair tousled just right? So that when he came back, we were like.
I imagine there's probably like a supplementary book that explains how that happened.
Yeah, I know. He has a prequel comic.
Yeah.
But he should definitely have a book where it's like, this is how I got off Jakku all by myself without meeting any other characters who were intrinsic to the plot.
Doesn't he tell Finn that the only reason he didn't come back for Finn is he thought he was dead?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that bit at least makes sense.
Yeah.
The rest of it is like, I feel that this could have been cut less cleanly so that we didn't... Because I'm pretty sure if there is a piece of supplementary material, then it will be based on, like, cut parts of the script.
Yeah.
But... it's not in the text, man. And I'm not that enthused about Death of the Author as a concept, but sometimes you just gotta roll with it.
I love Death of the Author as a concept.
Like, my major problem with Death of the Author as a concept is that I find it's very, very oppositional. Well, I say it's very, very oppositional. I think the way that it's interpreted by a lot of people in the writing circles I see is they believe that it's very oppositional to implicit storytelling.
Yeah, I don't think it has to be.
I don't think it has to be either. I think just like the way that a lot of, particularly fanfiction writers I see interpreting it, are like, oh, Death of the Author means that if something isn't explicitly stated in the text, it's not canon. And I'm like, that's not particularly true. And I feel like something I want to say is, it's cool if you think that the LGBT representation in Harry Potter was shit, because it was. But Dumbledore Grindelwald is in the text.
It is.
It is. It's not explicit. Possibly it should have been explicit, but it's in the text.
I think it's, like, it's not like Word of God and stuff like that. Like, a lot of people who, criticise J.K. Rowling don't get that she doesn't understand how Word of God works, and also they don't understand how Word of God works.
Also, the way that Word of God works is changing as well, because we have with us the capacity now a lot more than when the concept was first proposed, to record, especially when people talk about stuff on Twitter, to record like the archive of every verbal amendment that creator has made to their work, many of which are largely inconsequential outside the context of the exchange they happened in. So it's like not even important enough to start invoking Death of the Author and just invalidating it out of hand, because it's like, well, what actual difference does it make?
I think, I think as well, like, if someone asked me, oh, what about this character that you're writing? And, like, it was just, like, a casual conversation, it would be, like, really different to, like, if I gave, like, a formal interview or was answering a question at a formal panel or something like that. Like, Twitter is like, here are some random fucking thoughts.
Yeah. And also, like, I feel like a lot of the stuff, especially as indicated by her, seeming support for the idea of non-white Harry and Hermione, is that what J.K. Rowling is actually saying with all of the tidbits and stuff she releases on Twitter is, I don't know, man, make it up. Yeah. Like, it's fine. Like, whatever you come up with is fine.
Yeah.
And it's so it's...
which makes sense, because that's how J.K. Rowling was one of those writers who, along with Stephanie Meyer, was one of the big proponents for, fan shit. Because before then, we got sued.
A lot. There were still writers before that who were, sort of implicitly supportive of fan work. Oh, yeah. Although, to be honest, they didn't get a lot of support from their publishers for doing that.
No. Whereas, J.K. Rowling and Stephanie Meyer were, some of the first two really big writers who went, if you want to make fan fiction and fan art, that's actually that's brilliant, and I love that.
And for Stephanie Meyer, it's really obvious why. I feel like for J.K. Rowling, it's more that just that was something that she sort of has a very because she brought herself up from being on benefits, didn't she? So she probably has quite a very I can't think of the word that I'm looking at. So a very fundamental possibly even socialist idea to the idea of writing.
Yeah.
Just to, the idea of shared information and stuff like that. Whereas now, with Stephanie Meyer and a bunch of her contemporaries, we have really, I mean, obviously not the first generation raised on fan fiction, because, like, Dante's Inferno and the White Sargasso Sea existed long before that.
Well, Stephanie Meyer had a curated list of fan fiction that she'd read and liked, which is amazing to think of that time. I know that some writers, I know that all comic book writers are explicitly forbidden from reading fan fiction about comic book characters because of lawsuits that have happened in the past against comic book writers and by comic book writers. Like, basically, it's like, don't sue people who write fan fiction and don't get sued by people who write fan fiction.
Yeah. It's I don't really know how this is relevant, but it seems good stuff.
It's interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it is. But I think we're going to see democratization, that's it. The democratization of writing. I'm not actually sure that is it, but whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Writing for the masses.
I mean,
you're going to see more of that going forward, just because there are going to be more and more writers coming forward whose grounding in writing community wasn't like the Inklings or whatever. It was literally internet fanfiction.
Yeah, I think as well. I think that's something I very strongly believe in as well. Like the fact that I'm very much a part, the idea of a piece of art of work belongs implicitly to the fans, and while an author's intent is important for the context of this sort of thing, if you have some meaning to it that you put to it yourself, that is just as valid as the author's reading of it. If the authors are like, his hat is red because he was angry all the time, and you're like, no, his hat is red because he's gay, that is no less...
That's a terrible example, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a terrible example, but it's, do you know what I mean? It's like your reading of that is still as valid as the authors, even though they're the ones who wrote it.
So basically what we're saying is that Jace Beleren is bisexual and in love with Gideon Jura.
Yeah. I don't even give a shit about Magic the Gathering, and even I know that they're in love.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jace's thing for Liliana might not totally be dead, which is a pity because it's not a good idea, but I mean, who wouldn't date Gideon? He's nice and responsible and pretty and Greek, I guess.
Abs that you could grate cheese on.
Yeah. He tries his best in that big wide art for those two cards where he's just sort of whipping the Eldrazi, and it doesn't really seem to be doing anything, but, he's there. He's putting the legwork in.
Yeah. He's doing his best.
He's doing his best. You can't go wrong with Gideon. See, that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of character you want instead of a Mary Sue. Just have someone who's has limits, but they're pretty solid at what they do, and then that will be a likable character.
Who is responsible, dependable, nice, is always doing their best, and most importantly,
which is, to be honest, the kind of character that Superman actually is, as far as I'm given to understand, rather than just being able to do everything, because admittedly his abilities are far beyond those of a human, hence why he is the Superman.
Yeah.
But mostly what makes him likable as a character is his strong sense of responsibility and kindness. Which is one of the comics I've seen out of context that really demonstrates that is I presume, Beth, you know what I'm going to talk about, the one where he goes and... Is it Captain Marvel that's Shazam's real name?
This is really complicated. So back then he was probably called Captain Marvel, but now he's called Shazam because of copyright reasons, because Marvel have a Captain Marvel.
Okay. But when Superman finds out that Shazam is just a kid who turns into an adult man who has superpowers, he goes to the druid people who made him like that and shouts at them.
The wizard Shazam, and is like,
what the fuck, dude?
What the fuck, dude? And the wizard's like, I'm a wizard!
I can do whatever I want. I don't answer to you, Superman. And Superman says, fuck you don't.
That's
He's a fucking kid. What the hell have you done?
Yeah. He's like, he's 10! He's 10 and you've given him the power of multiple gods.
Why did you think this would be a good idea?
I'm a wizard. That's not
a justification. I'm a Superman, and yeah, often it's cool, but sometimes it's shit, and a 10-year-old shouldn't have to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that sort of stuff. It's,
yeah. Which, by the way, I really like how in Dawn of Justice, Henry Cavill kind of plays Superman with this sort of quiet confidence, and he's so, like, gentle. It's like, yeah, I could probably break everyone's neck in this room if I wanted to, and I could do it really quickly, but I'm not going to do that because I'm nice.
And it's definitely, like, characters like that, like Steve Rogers and Superman and Gideon Jura.
See, Steve Rogers isn't necessary because he doesn't really have any like amazing.
No, he doesn't. But he's just like a genuinely nice guy who's like
he's just
can
like,
be talked to.
I'm just gonna do my best.
Like that. That's kind of why I like to relate Gideon a bit more to Steve Rogers. Just he always tries his best, and he's got this very strong sort of unifying, community-minded spirit that's just easy to get along with, and it's like. To try and sort of circuitously bring this back to role-playing games, you're probably not going to go far wrong if you make a character like that.
Yeah.
They might be difficult to play if you're not actually that kind of person, but you can try. Like, you absolutely can try. Like, try for a character who's just up for everything and kind and willing to do their best. And it's like... It sounds like a boring character, but as long as the character is dependably all of those things, that sounds like a cool person to hang out with.
Yeah, you want to be a reliable, competent character, just be...
The reliability, I think, is definitely the superpower of the character in question.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, this character is boring, and it's like, well, not really. This character would not work on their own, but... This character catalyzes, I think, a lot of the more volatile characters around them.
Yeah.
Just by being the sort of amplifying force.
Yeah.
And
like,
that's not nothing.
Like Captain America has to deal with Iron Man and Hawkeye and the Hulk and Spider-Man. And Spider-Man, who is really, really irresponsible. Like, Spider-Man is ridiculously irresponsible. Spider-Man is so irresponsible, it's ridiculous.
It sort of, like, explains to you why Spidey Pool is popular.
Yeah.
Even though it would probably be terrible because, like, neither of those people is the control in the relationship.
Yeah. I actually kind of feel like what makes Spidey Pool interesting is Spider-Man switches around from being, like, the goofy, irresponsible one to being the responsible one.
Oh, yeah, Spider-Man is definitely the straight man in that particular double act.
And he's like, oh my god, is this what Mary Jane is like when I'm dating her? I have to quit doing this. While, like, I don't know, Wade gets, like, something caught in a vending machine and gets his, like, arm stuck in it, and he's like, can someone chop this off so I can regrow it? And Spider-Man's just like, oh my god, this is why Gwen Stacy died, because I'm irresponsible. The vending machine is Gwen Stacy.
The vending machine is Gwen Stacy. I think that's us, because we're coming up to an hour and a half on the recording now, and I really do not have a lot of time either to edit it or just in general.
I know, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's that. We've probably said a lot of helpful things. Some of them were probably even related to the topic. Yeah. So, yeah, this was, I suppose, a special episode in that we'd been planning for a particular event to pass before we did this one. But for more episodes, we do still want to take your contributions as well as your questions for our Q&A episode. We do have some. We're keeping them in the tank. If you've already sent a question, we've probably received it. I won't know if we haven't received it, unfortunately, but I have received some. But I don't think it's enough to really make an entire episode yet, so we need more. Please give us more. And so QCon is coming up soon, and I'm planning to run another experiment.
Okay.
It's different, but I'm pretty sure that we could do a post-mortem on that as well.
Cool.
It's I will let you know afterwards how it goes. Until then, things are going to be a bit shaky, so I will get these edited when I can.
Cool.
All right. So, I'm Alex.
I'm Beth.
You can find us. I will link our Twitter and Tumblr and whatever below. We've said it enough times, to be honest, and it's much easier to have clickable links in the description or whatever. The music was by Kevin MacLeod, and apparently the background image behind the text on the YouTube version is some horrible amalgam of Piers Morgan's head and Khaleesa Al-Jalani's body that I knocked up in Photoshop. So, Khaleesa Al-Jalani belongs to BioWare, and Piers Morgan probably shouldn't exist.
Piers Morgan belongs in hell.
Mm-hmm.
Belongs to hell?
I don't know.
That one demon that's made entirely out of legs with a lion face in the middle, that's who he belongs to.
I mean...
Or that one owl with really long legs.
I kind of feel like Piers Morgan would be more successful if he'd made some sort of Faustian pact, so possibly he doesn't belong to hell yet.
Eventually, he'll get there.
Well, once he thinks of the idea or gets made the offer.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we will see you next time, whenever exactly next time is. And until then, take care of yourselves, and goodbye.
Bye.
As an aside, and I promise you that this isn't a paid product placement or anything, if you're still using the most recent version of Adobe Acrobat, ditch it and get Exchange Viewer. I mean, basically anything other than Adobe Acrobat for opening PDF files is going to improve your experience, but Exchange Viewer opens the same PDFs in a fraction of the time with all the same features and is much, much more stable. Since switching to it, I have been a lot happier, especially during our Skype games where I have to reference a character sheet. So here we go.
That does genuinely sound like Alex has been paid.
I mean, if the Exchange people want me to pay to advertise their product, I will do, because I genuinely do love it. Although, to be honest, I think most of the people listening who frequently use Adobe Acrobat would know it's not a particularly high bar to surmount.
Yeah. I liked Soda PDF because if you were reading comics, you could do it so that the comics actually had little flippy pages, and you could turn them like you were reading a real comic in real life.
I remember I once got a bunch of comics really cheap off. I don't think it was Free Comic Book Day, but it was some event, and I got the Comixology app.
Yeah.
And I was really skeptical about it until I realized that it would actually let you read panel by panel, and you could swipe to change panels, and I was like, oh, this is the future. I can read comics on my phone in a way that actually makes sense for reading comics on my phone.
Yeah. If you ever buy a digital first comic like Smallville, or I think is it the Wonder Woman Sensation comics?
Fuck Beth, I don't know.
I don't know, but if you ever read any of the DC Digital First, they always have really massive panels, and all the pages it's always they're really thick for comics, because obviously they're drawn to be read on a phone, so you have big detailed pages with lots of stuff in, and you maybe only have 3 or 4 panels on a comic book page when you get them in their physical copy.